Perfect. Okay. So going back to kind of what we were talking about, where I'm coming from and all this stuff. So as we mentioned, even kind of in our short introductions today, it's the month of Ramadan. And as someone who is pulling from Sufism, pulling from my ancestry, honoring the ancestors, I'm celebrating. So if you are new or, for those returning folks, you're kind of I'm happy to have you, and I'm lucky to have you as we've been doing kind of a Ramadan special, Ramadan spectacular, and a series of kind of meditations on working with mystical Islam and working with kind of our monthly groups, all on these themes that also run through Ramadan. Alchemy this time is going to be a little different because it's not going to be specifically Muslim focused, but it is Islamic history focused, because we'll be talking we'll be talking about Muslim alchemy and Islamic alchemy. You can kind of use them interchangeably in this case because it's kind of a descriptor of history, but you only use Muslim for people and you don't really call people Islamic people. Word to the wise on that one. So Islamic alchemy is what we're going to be talking about today. And I'm just going to say, I know that even when I started this, people were like, well, what does this have to do with Babylon? What does this have to do with everything? And I'm just letting you all know that this is just a taste of the small things that I can be saying in an hour. And, as we kind of grow the practice, maybe I'll be able to kind of extend and we can do more and things like that. But for now, this is just kind of an opportunity to get kind of the flavor of what this means, and then to go into more of a practical understanding through a meditation and meditative experience, a contemplation of kind of the working with the ideas that are used during kind of each subject that we've chosen for the month. And then we experience it, and then we sort of move on. Now, in terms of alchemy, it does really go all the way back to ancient Babylon and ancient Egypt. And I've said this before for the returning folks, but for the new folks, alchemy in some ways is considered to be even related to Kemet, which was the name for ancient Egypt. And so alchemy can in many ways be considered to come from ancient Egyptian magic, with the one caveat that I would add to that, which is that ancient Egypt and ancient Babylon were very much in conversation. They both conquered each other at one time. So their people were always speaking to each other, sharing letters, sharing stories, and sharing alchemical texts. And the more I've read, I'm respectful of both traditions, but I have read that there's often a lot of the sort of base alchemical Egyptian texts that were actually penned by Babylonian scholars. So it just goes to show that it's sort of from both. I see a question that says, what's Sufi versus Islamic history, briefly speaking, alchemy wise? So that's a very complicated question. I'll give you the simple question, which is what's Sufi versus what's Muslim? Yeah, it looks like we had to take off the ability to turn on video for now because some people were crashing the event. So thank you to the production director for that. And sorry for if anyone received any disturbances. Hopefully it was nothing. So the question, what is Sufi versus Islamic? In terms of alchemy, I think the real crux of that question is what's Sufi versus what's Muslim? And the answer is Sufism is mystical Islam, whereas Islam is one of the Abrahamic religions. It's Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. They're the people of the book. So they kind of all follow the teachings of the Torah, the Torah, and then from there have extrapolated their own understandings, right? And so Sufism is sort of a mix of working with the Quran and working with kind of pagan mystical traditions. So that, in terms of what's the difference, it's really sort of like, was the person a Muslim or were they Sufi? And so were they a person strictly working with the Quran or were they more of a mystic? Now, the truth is a lot of alchemists were mystics too. So, all right, now when we're thinking about Islamic alchemy, it they began often as translators of the work of the ancient Greeks, as well as the ancient Egyptians and the Babylonians. So some may see them only as translators, but I think that's a misguided approach, because they were very much doing their own work, very much their sorcerers of their own merit, I suppose you could say. And they were also creators of texts that were very much influential to later Western European scholars of alchemy. And not only that, but things like Hermeticism and modern, like esoteric thought, modern witchcraft, are very much tied to the Muslim alchemists. For example, things like the Emerald Tablets were considered to be written by Muslims. Jabir Ibn Hayen, who we're going to be speaking about today, is very much considered to be not just a father of kind of magic as we know it, and of kind of esoteric thought, as well as literally, again, Hermeticism. But he was also actually a father of chemistry. And so doctors talk about this man. He's a medical scientist as well as a magician. And so that was what was also kind of interesting about Islamic alchemy, is that it was a blending of the sciences of the world around them, and less philosophically based as the Greeks were working with, and more like, what can I categorize and how can I understand nature, and how can I do so in a way where I'm understanding scientifically kind of the hidden spirit and the hidden magic behind everything. So Islamic scholars at this time, they were very much unifiers of what they considered the secret of alchemy. For those who have come to my Sufi lectures, the idea of the secret in Sufism is very apparent. So the secret of alchemy was very important to them. And that was about not just the inner psychic experience in relation to nature, but also the inner wisdom that was in the stones and the water and the animals and the metals and the chemicals and all this stuff. And apparently they were a lot more poetic, I guess, because, with working with the Quran, excuse the sirens, there was a lot of kind of focus put into how do we speak about these kind of transcendent mysteries, and how do we speak about nature, because they're all given by God and therefore they're a gift, and therefore we have to speak about them as if they are kind of poetic, magical things. And finally, they were really interested in the union of kind of matter on a mystical level. So they were always thinking about the male, the female, the sun and the moon, the king and the queen. And as we spoke, I think it was our second alchemy class, they believe very much in the fire, promoting fire as transformation and therefore as love of God. So we're going to talk a little bit too about one specific Islamic alchemist, Javier Ibn Hayen. So Jabir ibn Hayyan was, as I mentioned, considered the father of alchemy, and he also coined the term that's our theme for today, Takwin. I'll be talking a little bit more about that in a moment, but just to get a sense of who came up with this term, he's either a Persian, an Iraqi, or a Yemeni scholar living in the 800s. He was an alchemist, a hermeticist. He was a Sufi. He was a scientist, he was a chemist, he was a botanist, a zoologist, an astronomer, an astrologer, and he considered himself a sorcerer. And kind of a fun note is that his teacher was named Jafar, which, I mean, I grew up with Aladdin, so I enjoyed that. But his name is Jabir, you can call him Jabir. Jabir Ibn Hayen. So he really wanted to understand the balance of all nature, and he really believed in kind of practical knowledge. So experimentation, as well as practicing the work that you were doing. And some believe he might, kind of like William Shakespeare, maybe he wasn't even a real person. I think he probably was, but he was a teacher of a mystical school. And so he has multiple titles that are called the Book of 70, the Book of 20, the Book of 40, which is a series of 70, 40, 20 books on alchemy and hermeticism and understanding the mystical. And so some of them are chemistry based, some of them are, specifically science based or herbal based or poison making based. Apparently he was interested in that as well. But there's also specific magical texts, which means that for him, these things were always together. It was always, I'm working with God, I am working with the spirit of all things, and also I'm working with magic. Someone says, can I comment his name? You'd love to look him up. Absolutely. So I'm going to put this in the chat for everyone to see. Jabir Ibn Hayen. Jabir Ibn Hayen. And so he also believed in the philosopher's stone, which is a term you might have heard a lot in alchemy. He believed it was the catalyst, elixir, or the elixir, that would make transformation possible. And he believed that it was about changing matter, that if you could basically put the stone into something, it would change matter. So he, in a way, was talking about quantum change and atomic shifting of elements in the periodic table in the 800s, which I find amazing. And of course, as a crystal lover myself, he believed in the power of crystals and was also very much into talismanic magic. So all of that I find very exciting, very interesting. No problem, happy to help. So let's talk about what we're here to do today, which is Taquin. Taquin is the term that was coined by Javier Ibn Hayen. And Taquin it comes from the root tekanun, which tekafnun, which means like to be. It relates to being. But when it's Taquin like this, no, actually, I'm sorry. Kaf u, like OU, and noon. Kun, yakun, takun, like this. I'm sorry. So Taquin, in this case, the O becomes a W. It doesn't really matter if you don't speak Arabic, but if you do, the root is kaf, wow, noon. And so it's Taquin. It is a new term that is about creation. Creation of basically alchemically manifesting, and specifically Takwin, which means creating life where there wasn't life before. So he believed that you could in some way animate a scorpion again, or create a scorpion from nothing. And he claims he did it. I don't know if that's true. But I do think that when we think of modern terms of sorcery, of spirituality, of kind of the psychic world, I think that this alchemy and this creation as manifestation, this ability to think into creation, that which we desire and that which we are hoping to see, our will in the physical, that is very much what Taquin is about. And so for Jabir Ibn Hayen, that was a relation to Genesis. That was relation to God. That was relation to Elohim, Allah, creating man and creating the light and creating the dark and creating the waters and everything. So for him, he could only do this as a Sufi in a way, and that's why he specifically is a Sufi. Being a Sufi meant that he believed God was within him, and therefore he could believe in Takwin, which is the idea that he could, with God in him, in his container, create the world that he wanted to live in, create his reality. I'm just checking if there are other questions. Oh, someone on Facebook says, appreciate the insights. Thank you so much. So that is, I think, what's important, is thinking about Taquin as taking our intention and using it as the catalyst, the kind of God power within us, the God sense, to create what it is that we desire. Both as kind of a self-hypnosis, but also as really going into the mystical of manifestation and of creation. So as I was preparing this class, and we're coming to the end of the lecture here before we begin our kind of practicum and our meditation contemplation space, I was trying to meditate and I was trying to work with, well, what would Jabir Ibn Hayen want for me to hold class? He's a teacher. He was a mystical teacher. How can I be a teacher of his school? To the best of my ability, with the utmost respect. And the questions that kind of came to me as I was pondering him and, honestly inviting him into the space if he wanted to come, were these ideas of, I got basically 4 questions and 4 answers. And so I invite you to ponder these. If you want to write them down, you can. But basically the idea is, first, what happens when we undergo the processes of nature? The answer is we are changed. The second is, what happens to us when nature changes us? The answer is something new is created within us. The third question, what is all of this, this change? And the answer, of course, is this in of itself is nature. And finally, what happens when we take the reins of nature into our own hands? And the answer is that we create something new outside of ourselves. And the idea is that nature is change. All things are change. All things are change. Change within us, and often change around us. But we, as beings in this nature, have the ability to create something new out of dream, out of alchemy. We can, even if we write a poem, a haiku, we've created something new. And so this can be done on the macro, but it can be done, the micro, but it can be done on the macro. It can be. And that's what's important about alchemy, is the idea that the more you understand about nature, the more you are able to change, whether it's other people, whether it's simply your relation to other people. All of this is possible with alchemy. Someone says, can I put these questions in the chat? Absolutely. So I'm going to do that. And then someone says they would like to receive the recording. I have a YouTube where I put all of the recordings. I think I'll try to email you. It would be best if you email me. I know that you've contacted me before. Please email me. I'll try to send it. Otherwise, you'll be able to find it on the YouTube. But I'd be happy to share again if I can. But please remind me if you are able to. Because honestly, after this, thank you. Appreciate the comment. They're very cool contemplations. Thank you for that. So I hope that that in some way helps. The only reason I ask, if anyone has questions after this, please email me. I'm still fasting, but my fast ends today at almost 7:50. So I'm probably just going to keep fasting until I leave this class. However, if anyone has any wishes, it's believed, especially now it's Laylatul Qadr, it's the last nights of Ramadan. If you have wishes, the best time to make a wish is right before you break the fast. So if you have a wish that you'd like me to help you manifest, send it to me over email, send it to me now over the Zoom or at the end, and I will wish with that intention for you before I break my fast. Okay, so if my production director is here, please put the music on. I heard him walking around and that's fine. Okay, thank you. And someone asked for the email, so I'm just going to put this in the chat for everyone. And I'll send the YouTube link in a bit. Maybe if my production director is able to find it, maybe he can send it. And okay, let's go ahead and get started. All right. So let's all take a moment now as spiritual workers in our own divinatory school, mystery school, mystical school, collectively arrive now for this download and opening for our wisdom, for our alchemy. Welcoming in a bit of quiet. And now let us all move into some deep breaths, guided breaths. I will guide you so that we can continue to facilitate a clearing of the mind that will allow for an opening of this wisdom. So when I say 9, we'll breathe in, and when I say 9, we'll breathe out. And we'll do this a few times, and then we'll return as normal. Breathing in now, 9. And breathing out, 9. Breathing in, 9. Breathing out, 9. And take one final breath here, really bringing in awareness from the bottom of our feet to the top of our head, and really filling the belly as we all together breathe in, 9. And we let it all release, 9. Great work, everyone. Let us also use this time now to take stock of the body, the emotions, the feelings, the spirit, connecting to our internal recipe that makes us ourselves. Releasing all that does not serve you in this moment as you look within. We see the parts of us that are crystal, that are move fluid and liquid, the fiery metal within us, as well as the ether. We allow for an ordering of ourselves so that we can arrive fully into this moment. Inviting everything now to come into balance with the natural order. Let us now all envision together, either with our psychic third eye vision, or simply as if, as I tell you this story, this unraveling of our journey to our alchemical selves, we can all envision that our story, our minds, our bodies, our days are all written on the pages of a great book of secrets. A book that is very thick, open somewhere just in the middle, with much behind and much ahead, with much of your story written on the open pages. And now, either through our own hand or the hand of the spirits or the great divine, as we watch these pages become blank and the story is wiped away, today's page becomes now a new blank slate. As we understand that the small everyday details do not need to matter today. And when we are ready, we can, for now, only for now, close this book and hold it tight to our chest, our own book of alchemical secrets and wisdoms. As we open our consciousness now to expand beyond this day, beyond the earthly, into the connection with the divine. During these last nights of Ramadan, Laylatul Qadr, Layal al-Qadr, these nights of power, working with the alchemy of the Sufi sorcerers, of Taquin, we welcome in our connection to the greater universe and to expand. We may feel like our cheeks are caressed by the divine, so we are invited to look up and to experience the great nature of all things, the divine cosmos, the divine galaxies. And we see that this universe that holds us is our alchemical lab, our workshop, our apothecary, our menagerie. And we are surrounded with opportunities to explore, to create, and to change. We recognize that our life is the lab and that we are practitioners of the vibrational, alchemical, energetic sorcery and wisdom of rewriting and recreating our universe. And as we understand that we are these practitioners, may a download now be received to each and every one of you under these Layal al-Qadr nights of power, under this shifting moon, this opening into eclipse season. May we receive a download as the sorcerer and sorceress, witch, wizard, spiritualist, alchemist, that each and every one of us in this room is. And with this understanding, we reopen the book that we're holding to our heart to rewrite our story today. It could be of what happened today, but it could be of these things that you are looking to become created. What you choose to invite Taquin into. If you have a notebook and you'd like to do automatic writing, you can. Or if you have a wand, you can write energetically. Any kind of crystal. Taking down the notes of your Taquin, of your creation. For you are a being of the creation of the entire cosmos. You are a being of the creation of the darkness and the light, of the waters above and the waters below. You are a creator as God created in Genesis. All has been written for us. All has been written by us. Let us believe in our ability to create within the experience of our life in this alchemical lab we call Earth. Let us see life be given to our dreams. Let us see Taquin take hold as we become the quantum holders of the generation, of the genesis, of the creation, of the Taquin of our story. May we all feel the power of the divine and expanded consciousness with us as we write our dreams and our manifestations into being, listening for any other messages that come or wisdoms that will make our reality appear. And we receive our mantra for the upcoming cycle until we meet again in alchemical space. From my hands, I create life. From my hands, I create all. From my hands, I create life. From my hands, I create all. And together, we dream all of our wishes into fulfillment, into truth, into reality, into being. We create something new with the belief that it is in fact now true. And with that, when you are ready, I will count down from 5, holding the vibration of change, and we will return back to this room and back to this moment. Counting down now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and 0. Returning now. Let's turn off the music. And I saw someone on the Facebook chat said, wishing for self-fulfillment, joy, and longevity for all of our wishes to come true. So yes, Ameen, may all of that come true. Thank you. And good night to those who are watching on Facebook. let's go ahead and stop the live stream, and we're going to stop the recording.